Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We begin this show with some shocking news. Lying has been detected here in Washington. Mendacity, deceit, duplicitousness, saying things that aren't true. The hair on my arms is going up just telling you about this. But it happened, and we can prove it. Now, to be clear, news anchors didn't do it. News anchors don't lie. They're good people. Neither do professional cable news commentators, the one making millions on the side as lobbyists for foreign governments or big multinational corporations. Commentators always tell the truth. And that's why they and their scrupulously honest news anchor friends are so utterly disgusted tonight, horrified really, by what retired General Michael Flynn has done. Watch their stunned reactions.
Michael Flynn lied to the FBI. Flynn lied again and again and again to FBI agents. Just lied. Lies, lies, and more lies.
Hold on for just a minute about who's significant and who's not. Flynn lied. The tone should be when you speak to a prosecutor, you speak to the truth. Everybody lied.
Michael Flynn was betraying his country. Michael Flynn was betraying his office.
He lied, says Don Lemon and his news anchor's friend. Lied, lied, lied. He's a very bad man, a lying kind of man, the worst kind. He could never work in television. For his crime of lying, Michael Flynn, the liar, may soon be locked away in a cell. That would keep the rest of us safe from his perfidious lies. That day can't come fast enough, say the news anchors. Cuff him. America longs to breathe free once more. Michael Flynn will be 60 years old next week. The Washington Post calculates he faces 5 years in prison. And let that be a warning to all of us. That's what happens to people who lie in Washington. Or does it? From a golf course somewhere in Dubai, you could almost hear Bill Clinton chuckling softly. Lied under oath, still making 300 grand a speech. Not everyone faces the same penalties for lying, it turns out. Mark Zuckerberg came to Washington last spring to talk about Facebook. That's the soul-destroying social media company that has made him a multi-billionaire. While in town, Zuckerberg stopped by the Congress where, and you might want to ask the kids to leave the room for this, he lied. Yep, don't tell Don Lemon, but Mark Zuckerberg is a liar. Watch him do it.
This is the most important principle for Facebook. Every piece of content that you share on Facebook, you own, and you have complete control over who sees it and how you share it, and you can remove it at any time.
Are you willing to give me more control over my data?
Senator, as someone who uses Facebook, I believe that you should have complete control over your data.
Yeah, you have complete control over your data. You control who sees it, you own it. That's really the most important principle at Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg says so with a completely straight face. The only problem, it was a lie. Sorry, kids. According to a piece in the New York Times, Facebook does not actually allow you or anyone else to control your data. Not at all. In fact, they secretly hand over your data, personal data, to other big tech companies. Now, that decision has made Mark Zuckerberg even richer, adding on to the house in Hawaii probably. Unfortunately, he's had to lie in the process, including to Congress, and that's a crime. As Robespierre once famously noted, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. In this case, the eggs are your privacy. Apparently, Facebook allowed Microsoft's search engine Bing to see the names of your Facebook friends without telling you about it. Facebook also allowed Netflix and Spotify to read your private messages without telling you. Now, there's no evidence so far as of tonight that Facebook has a video camera hidden in your shower, but close enough. That's what Mark Zuckerberg lied about. Not a small lie, really. What did Mike Flynn lie about? Well, according to the FBI, Flynn lied about conversations he'd had with the Russian ambassador, Kislyak. You remember him. Flynn said that he and Kislyak had never talked about expelling Russian diplomats or about Russia voting in the UN on symbolic resolutions. And in fact, they had talked about both of those things. The feds already knew that because they were listening in secretly. There was nothing improper about the conversations that Flynn and Kislyak had. The crime was the lie. It's always the crime, except when it's Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg can lie about something that affects hundreds of millions of Americans, but it's not really a big deal. Zuckerberg is not looking at 5 years in prison. Zuckerberg will not be sanctioned by Congress ever. So what's the difference? Well, unlike Mike Flynn, Mark Zuckerberg is a hero to the American news media. He's who they want to be. He's richer than God. He went to Harvard. He wears T-shirts at work, for real. He's for open borders. All the cool people like Mark Zuckerberg, even in foreign countries. For example, when the fascist government of China was looking for new tools to repress its own population, you think they went to Mike Flynn for help? Yeah, okay. I don't think so. Flynn is tough on China, old-fashioned as he is. But Mark Zuckerberg, by contrast, was happy to help. As they say at McKinsey, Mark Zuckerberg gets it. And by the way, what has Mike Flynn ever done for anyone? 33 years in uniform? That's not very innovative. 2 lies told by 2 high-profile Americans. One is going to prison in late middle age. The other will be available for like 40 years for commencement addresses and awards dinners held in his honor. That's the tale of Mike Flynn and Mark Zuckerberg. It tells you everything. Joining us now to break down what's happening to Mike Flynn is Harvard Law professor Emeritus Alan Dershowitz. He's the author of the book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump. Professor, thank you very much for coming on. So I read in the Washington Post this morning, I read Mike Flynn described as a double agent in the Washington Post. And then I saw the judge, Sullivan, yesterday describe him as someone who had committed treason. Is that the crime for which he's facing prison?
No, not at all. And I'll get to that in a second. But, Tucker, I just want to make one point. I hope you don't mind me making it.
I hope you will.
Boycotts and attempts. I hate boycotts and attempts to censor free speech. I'm in favor of complete dialogue. But as such, I feel impelled to tell you that I, with due respect, disagree with the way you categorize mass immigration. That's all. I just want to say that.
Well, that's okay. And by the way, now I would expect that you would. We differ probably on a lot of issues, but the one issue that we agree on and that I respect you for is your willingness to say what you think in public, to defend your views, to have a conversation, and to let others decide which side is right. And that's something that I wish we were able to do a lot more of. But you're one of the only liberals who will come on this show.
I completely agree.
Amen. So thank you very much for saying that.
Well, I agree, and I come on the show because I also have the right to say what I think, and when I disagree with you, you allow me to say I disagree with you, and I do. I wish you hadn't used that language. Language like that was used to describe my grandparents and great-grandparents, and probably some of yours. So let's move on.
Well, actually, just in point of fact, since you brought it up, as noted on Monday, that was in the context of a conversation with an elected official in Tijuana about the filth of his city, and he was complaining about how dirty it had become, which was a byproduct of the policy decisions pushed by the American left. And I noted there's a lesson there perhaps for us. So I'm not, and I would never describe people as inherently dirty. I don't think that they are. I'm pro-people. It's one of the reasons I'm against abortion. Strongly. But anyway, whatever. The point is, I wish we were able.
You cleared that up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was clear, and I think that the people who are mischaracterizing it are always welcome on the show to talk it through and to hear my side, and I will hear their side, because again, this is one of the last forums in America for open conversation. Anyway, but tell me this.
That's very fair. Let's turn to Flynn.
That's how I feel. Look, I'm not afraid to defend what I think, obviously.
No, look, I agree. Neither am I. On the Flynn issue, look, there's a big issue. I've been teaching this for 50 years. Should it really ever be a crime to lie when you're not under oath? I think you can make a very, very strong case that before you can be convicted of a crime for lying, you should have to raise your hand, put it on a Bible, look to your God or look to your ethics, have a solemn moment where you look the person in the face and swear to him that you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's so different from when 2 guys evade the usual procedures, come in to try to hang out with you and be chummy, say you don't need a lawyer, we just want to ask you a couple of questions, and then trap him by asking him questions that they already knew the answer to and had videotapes and audio tapes that could make it clear that they were only asking him the question in order to give him an opportunity to lie. So I really do think that we have kind of 3 criteria. Just lying politically. It's done too often. I hate it, but it's done too often. It's not a crime. Second, lying only to government officials, which is a crime, but probably shouldn't be a crime. Or if it is, it should be a misdemeanor, not a serious felony akin to raising your right arm and swearing under oath that you will tell the truth. There's too much lying in Washington, and there are too many, as you point out correctly, double standards about who is prosecuted for lying. You know, in civil cases, People lie in depositions all the time, and they're never prosecuted. I tried to bring a case recently against people who lied. Prosecutors laugh at you. Lying in a deposition, that's like gambling in Casablanca. It's just done all the time, and it's tragic that it's done. I testified in front of Congress about this when they were going after Bill Clinton and trying to, and impeaching him for his lies. I had a whole session where I talked about how many lies are told in how many different places and how selective they are in going after people. That's one of the problems of not requiring an oath. It gives you the opportunity to selectively pick people to prosecute for lying not under oath.
We're almost out of time, but it is a lie to, rather it is a crime to lie to federal investigators, but it's not a crime for them to lie to you. Why?
No, not only that, the Supreme Court has said it's perfectly okay for police and FBI agents to lie to you, and that happens every day. You'll have two people who they suspect of a crime. They'll bring one person in and say, oh, by the way, your buddy just ratted you out, just turned you in, and you're going to get executed unless you tell us that he did it too. And of course, it was a total lie. They say the same thing to the other person, and the Supreme Court has said lying by FBI agents, lying by federal officials is permissible and de rigueur. It's done all the time. Right. But if you lie back to them, then it's a crime. It's even a crime, the Supreme Court has said, to deny that you did something. If somebody asks you, did you do something, a crime, and you say, no, and you did, you've doubled your punishment by now lying about whether you committed a crime. The irony about Flynn is he wasn't lying about committing a crime. He did nothing wrong. What he did was perfectly legal. I'm still scratching my head and trying to figure out why he lied. What was his motive? Is it possible he misremembered?
And by the way,
now
why were the feds spying on the incoming national security advisor? Is that normal? I don't know. Professor, thank you very much.
Comey told us. Comey said, look, I could get away with it, Comey said.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you should be spying on members of your own executive branch unless there's a good reason to do that. But anyway, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Right. Thank you.
Well, yesterday, the president accused the Mueller investigation of intentionally and illegally deleting 19,000 text messages. Those were between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. The DOJ claims the text messages were not erased intentionally, but they were lost due to technical errors. Speaking of lying, is that a lie or is it true? Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, joins us tonight. Really simple. It's hard to believe that the Department of Justice would lie about something like that. Are they or are they not?
Well, we don't know the truth. We've got these two categories of text messages. These were text messages the DOJ had or the FBI had back when Page and Strzok were not members of the Mueller special counsel team, and there was a gap in terms of capturing those text messages, and there were about 19,000 that were subsequently recovered supposedly by the IG. And then they go work for Mueller's operation. They get removed because of these text messages that they were sending around talking about insurance policies against Trump and being pro-Hillary. And IG asked for their phone because he wants to look at more of these text messages. And their phones have been wiped, have been reset, unrecoverable. We don't know how many text messages were erased by the Mueller special counsel operation. They remove him for Page and Strzok. They remove Strzok specifically for misconduct and bias that was found in his text messages, but no one looks at his text messages from the time he was in the Mueller special counsel operation, the most sensitive investigation the Justice Department's been involved in decades. Unbelievable.
Investigations are, by definition, supposed to be preserving evidence. So, do you think it's plausible that the Mueller people might have been implicated in erasing evidence? That just seems like a shocking.
Well, you know what? Manafort was accused of withholding evidence. You know what they did? They didn't know for sure whether he was. They issued a search warrant and they raided his home with guns drawn in the early morning. That's not what happens when the government erases evidence on purpose or accidentally. And it's so bad, this special counsel. You see in the Flynn investigation questions about how that investigation was handled. Now we have these missing text messages and the Strzok.
Well, it really makes you wish we had elected officials in this country who could protect the rest of us from these abuses. I wonder where they are.
We need a special counsel for the special counsel.
Yeah, or how about just someone elected? Do something. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.